how we're investing in post-high school pathways. And specifically, I want to ask you how it's that, I guess, lack of investment in work-based learning opportunities, how it's affecting young men in particular. And I'm thinking back to a podcast episode we did a while ago, looking specifically at the data showing a decline in rates of enrollment and completion in traditional four-year degrees among men specifically. So kind of if there's this idea that men maybe are not seeing as much value in a traditional college pathway today compared to maybe how they used to view it in the past, relatively speaking, can an apprenticeship approach be the solution or a solution to say that this is an alternative pathway that's really effective? Can you talk about that imbalance question for how it affects men's economic prospects?
Absolutely. A book on my nightstand right now is Notes on Being a Man by Scott Galloway. He's an NYU Stern professor of business. He also does a terrific podcast called Prof G, and he writes that no group has fallen faster than young men since 1980. The number of men who are neat, not in education, training, or employment, has quadrupled. And we haven't focused at all. We've sort of said, well, we're going to take our finger off the pulse of what's happening with men. Well, I'll tell you what the result is. 60% of men 18 to 24 are now living with their parents, and they're less likely to succeed in college than in any point in the last 30 years. Boys are 5 times more likely to die deaths of despair than women. And we're starting to wake up to this crisis, but it's been just a lot of rhetoric. The Trump administration and its campaign was right to focus on the problems of young men, but they moved into more of, women are the problem, minorities are the problem, illegal immigration is the problem, without really coming up with good solutions for men. But I'll tell you the good news about men, and this is where we can move into like actual action, is that 85% of apprentices today are men, and they're making $80,000 on average. The average apprentice completer compared to their peers earns 300,000 more over their lifetime. And so what I like to say is that's not a flaw, it's a feature of apprenticeships. It's good that men are doing well in the trades and in these apprenticeships, and we want to do more of that. Rather than those there's a lot of young men that I talk to and have done research with over the years that said, "Hey," and it's a lot of the guys like I grew up with that were just like, "I'm so sick of sitting at a desk. I'm not going to spend another 4 years in a classroom. I'm ready to work, learn, get married, buy a house, do all those things, move to action." That's really why, a lot of us, the way our brains work is that we're enticed to action. And so this is a good opportunity for men to get into those programs get into this work that is high paying, and for family formation, to build families that are stable and working. I mean, I would go back to my family. My parents last year celebrated 50 years of marriage, and the big reason was that we were economically stable. And if we want more of that here in the United States, we need to make sure that the blue collars are as valued as much as the white collars are. And today we just haven't done that. So, um, but for apprenticeships, if we're going to expand them, it shouldn't be a zero sum kind of thing. If we expand apprenticeships, they're going to be good for men and women. More economic opportunity is not it's not taking from Peter to pay Paul. And when we help find people that purpose, that path to prosperity, I think we all win. And the momentum behind this is actually real. So, during my time in starting with apprenticeships in 2013, I worked at the Office of Apprenticeship. It was a $27 million program. And today that office is managing assets that are over $1 billion through the last 5 to 10 years. So we're seeing that apprenticeships have actually increased, nearly doubling over the last decade. And I think that that is a really good story for America, but it's particularly a good story for men that want to get into the middle class and want to succeed. Succeed moving forward.
Zach, hearing the expansion of apprenticeships is really encouraging, but there's still a fairly small segment of the workforce, right? I wonder if you can talk about how do you make sense of kind of where apprenticeships stand today? And there has been this positive growth, but it's still again a small segment of the economy of the workforce. Can you talk about what that looks like and maybe why that is, and what we should be doing to try and expand that, or I guess why we should expand it?
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to our federal spending. I mean, if we're spending $1,000 on higher education and $1 on the trades and apprenticeships, we're just going to see a small amount of folks going into apprenticeships and earning and learning, and not taking on massive amounts of debt. What has changed is that there are new sectors that are starting in apprenticeships, and that's really exciting. So, 2013, dial back that clock, most of the apprenticeships in the United States are in construction and some in the military. And that makes up 95% of the apprenticeships. Today, we see tech investing. So, companies like IBM, Google, Amazon, Accenture offering apprenticeships. I was fortunate enough to get a call when I was at the Urban Institute from Google that said, "We heard about this apprenticeship thing. We don't know how to do it. Can you help us through that?" And I said, "Sure." We've got a project that we're working on that will expand tech apprenticeships. It was an investment that the U.S. Department of Labor made into Urban Institute as an apprenticeship intermediary. Now, today, there are hundreds of Google apprentices that are all doing these different tracks, everything from UX design to IT help desk to software development to digital marketing. And those are terrific careers. I mean, imagine coming out of spending 2 to 3 years at Google and saying, "I did all of this at one of the top American companies, and I don't just tell you I did it. I can show you that I know how to do it because I was learning that from some of the best mentors at Google." And so I'm excited about that model going from tech, to healthcare. Kaiser offering apprenticeships to teaching. We're seeing a lot of states that are now investing in teacher apprenticeships because we have a real shortage of teachers in the classroom. Maybe because we don't pay them enough, but maybe too that who wants to spend 4 years going to college, spending $100,000 to come out and make $30,000? It just doesn't make economic sense. So an apprenticeship model might actually help us shift the dialogue on how we get more teachers into the classroom and don't require them to go into so much debt. And it can change industries too. I think about the insurance industry. I mean, it sounds boring, but for a lot of young people and for these companies, apprenticeships can be transformative. So, a company called Aon and Zurich came together a few years ago and really changed the story on insurance apprenticeships, working with Harold Washington Community College. Before they were a largely white organization that had no pipelines of helping minorities and people of color into those good jobs. And they looked around and said, "Why don't we work with Harold Washington Community College? We'll bring in some of our best mentors, and we'll bring in those kids that maybe won't finish that associate's degree. But if we hire them and we train them the way that we want to train them, give them the points on how we work as a corporation, as an institution, teach them how we do our business, we might just succeed and get some new ideas. And ultimately, they did. And this is a really exciting way on how we transform not just apprenticeships into insurance and teaching and tech, but how we transform on how we get people into good work.
Thanks for watching that clip of Defending Ideas. For the full conversation, click the link in the description and make sure to like and subscribe wherever you get your shows.